Manchester City 2, Real Madrid 1. First things first, man, we need to give credit to Rodrygo. And I know a lot has been said he's not scored since March, they started the third. But Rodrygo, man, class is permanent. Welcome to the football room. Make the analysis. Manchester City versus Real Madrid, Champions League. Much anticipated match. Simply because Real Madrid are basically under pressure, or they were under pressure. Okay, they are still more so now that they've lost. And a lot has been said about whether Champions League is going to be the coach or they're going to fire him. There's a lot going on. But I just dive into the match quickly. At this point, you're probably thinking, okay, we know what Manchester City are going to do. They want to dominate possession, right? Doku is basically hugging the touchline. Connor's playing in that pocket, right? And you're probably thinking, okay, they want to isolate the fullback. They want Doku to have that, to use his pace and his shimmy, yai, to be able to cut in and shoot, of which is something that, we have accustomed to knowing that Doku is capable of doing. Most of what he does that is like his electric pace. It becomes difficult to defend. And mind you, Rodrygo is, Valverde rather is also quick, so it's not like he's a fluke, right? In the midfield, pretty interesting, Ceballos was there. Ceballos, obviously, he's more like a technical player more than anything else. He's very elegant. I remember the loan spell that he had at Arsenal. So you can see the quality that he has, he's an eagle on the ball. Obviously, Tchouaméni was just like sitting deep. Jude Bellingham, obviously, we know the engine that he has, and that drive to go forward. What was pretty much interesting for me was the Rodrygo and Vinicius situation again. I liken that situation to basically what happens at Barca between Lamine Yamal and Rafinha, whereby one player can be able to play on both sides, right? Equally good, and the other one just prefers to play in one position. For example, Lamine Yamal basically prefers to play on the right hand side. Of course, now so he's playing more like a 10 position. Likewise, Vinicius Jr., of course, he can play it on in the middle, but he prefers to be on the left hand side. Rodrygo, however, is comfortable enough to play on both sides. So whenever I look at that situation, it reminds me of the situation at Barcelona. But nonetheless, man, the first 10 to 15 minutes, it was more like a box-to-box match. City had their chances, so did Real Madrid. I remember vividly what Rodrygo did when he put that ball into the corner of, into the room of uncertainty, the corridor of uncertainty. And I think at this point, if Vinicius just gets like a clean, better connection, I don't know, because he tried to chip the ball with his right foot, but unfortunately, I don't think he connected properly. So we know that, this was going to be a proper game because these teams always score when they play against each other. And that's something that is a spectator you are just looking forward to seeing, basically. Two teams basically going at each other and not being afraid. Let's speak about the goal. RODRYGO. Man. The first touch basically set him up to be able to score the way he scored. And normally you think that one would shoot with the laces, they're like hard and low, but I actually used like the inner part of his foot, which is a very difficult technique because normally when you do that, you drag the ball out wide. I think we've also kind of like seen this technique similar to that of Kylian Mbappe, whereby it's not really like, he's not hitting it through, but it's more so like hitting it on the side. And I mean, Rodrygo could not have connected any better. And you could see when he actually scored how happy he looked. That confidence of saying, hey, I'm still him. Don't forget me. You understand? Because sometimes football moves so quick because of the youngsters that are coming up. Everything is so fast paced. One day you could be there, tomorrow then everyone is kind of like doubting your abilities. But man, Rodrygo is Rodrygo, man. Star player. I mean, absolutely. Man, he's a joy to watch, honestly. Like, he's someone that can take the ball and inject that pace and creativity. More so because in the first half also we saw him drifting into that central position. Right, that central position whereby he's playing more like a 10, and sometimes he then overloads with Vinicius, and then they combine. You understand? Because they've got that understanding, they've got more of that street finesse flair, so it's easy for them to play with each other. I give you to feed, bro. You give me back. Of which, as a footballer, you wouldn't want anything more than that, to be able to understand your players, especially up front. And that City's also have got a strong defense, so you need to be like, quick and intentional about what you're trying to actually achieve. We didn't see much of Erling Haaland, to be honest, in the first 15 minutes. There was not like much that was going on, with him particularly. But I need to speak about the combination of Ryan and Foden. Both technically good players, but in a different manner. I think Ryan brings more of that flair. There's a sort of creativity and flair that he has, whereas Foden's technical ability is more direct. It's more direct. His technical ability is good, but it's more direct. But with Ryan, he's technically good. Obviously, he can use both feet very well. but there's also that sort of creativity that you need. There was a time when he nutmegged Rudiger, and they were both, after that, they were both smiling because Rudiger was like, I see you, bro. And Ronald's basically like, yeah, I'm here, bro. We were playing away, but I'm here. So that's obviously something that's it's nice to see that even though they nutmegged him, they still got on with the game. Nico obviously playing at the base of that midfield, which was good. I was actually looking forward to seeing his battle with Jude Bellingham because they're both physically strong players. Obviously I think Jude Bellingham is more of the athletic type. Nico can also cover a bit of ground. Connor Shaw more playing this left back role that he actually plays. It's quite interesting because he doesn't really he's not playing left back, but like we said, he's playing in those pockets, of which he's comfortable enough to be playing in the midfield, because I know he actually is a midfielder by trade, but obviously because of the system that Guardiola uses, he's also comfortable enough, and I think he's adopted that left back position. But because it plays with fluidity, it's much easier to gel, and it's much especially when you're a midfielder playing out of position. And you're playing that because you're technically so good, playing midfield in Guardiola's system means you have some technical ability, which then allows you to, if you are to be moved, for example, it becomes a bit, it's not your natural position, but it's better because you can still, you can still play, you can still collect the ball. And I think he played well today, man. I think obviously he scored a goal. Speaking of that goal, I just want to go back to what we're saying about Doku, right? So normally we know that Doku, when he has the ball, he wants to cut inside. But what he did at this particular point is he went on the outside. And when you do that, there's so much room on the outside to run to. And because of that, he went outside, took Valverde for a run. Because Valverde is also quick and he's got pace, he's also managed to recover. And then that's when we see the corner. They concede a corner, they get the ball, the first header, Courtois doesn't really save it. I think it also caught him by surprise a little bit, palms it into the hands of Connor, and Connor basically scores the goal. I know Xabi Alonso was saying there was like a push or like holding in the box, but yeah, the goal was actually given, So I think when we see Doku do more of that, it's kind of like a surprise element, because he also does carry the team sometimes, and he can also be an outlet because he's also physically strong. And he can actually protect the ball really well as well. And you need that sometimes just to give a bit of pressure, right? We go into the second half and we see some tactical changes from Xabi Alonso. So Jude Bellingham and Rodrygo actually swap positions, because in the first half you saw Jude Bellingham coming off that left-hand side, right, more as an 8. Well, in the second half you saw Rodrygo rather coming in on the inside and playing more of that 10-8 position. And I think they're also looking for that overload that they normally use, and I think this system have also seen it in Brazil when Rodrygo and Vinicius actually play together and they overload one side. Obviously that leaves the other flank free, but at the same time, when it works and there's an overload, it works because then both players are basically comfortable in their natural position, which is playing out on that left-hand side of the pitch. And I think that was something that was pivotal because Rodrygo was then playing in those pockets, and he's someone that's really good. He has played as a 10 for Brazil as well, so it's not like something that is foreign to him, and he wears the number 10 when obviously Neymar is not there. But him playing in that number 10 position, the technical ability, he's got the technical ability to do so. The half turn is really important. The directness is also really important. The connection that he has with the Vinicius is also really important. So that's something that obviously is good to see, and you could see that Real Madrid were basically trying by all means to make sure that they score. Right, whereas Manchester City kept their composure. Diaz was really solid in the defense line. Again, a leader. You could see that he's trying to arrange, he's trying to organize, trying to make sure that everyone is together. And also what they do well is they basically build up with the back 3 or sometimes with the back 2, because they've got, a midfielder which is like Nuno, who basically sometimes also plays as a right back. So he's got the technical ability to slot into the centre back. I like in his position and the way he plays with that of Tchouameni as well. And we think we saw Tchouameni playing in the when they put Enrique on, they actually put Tchouameni in that centre back position because again he's flexible enough to be able to play those positions. So I think overall the game was pretty interesting. Sometimes you need to watch a match and feel like, okay, I'm at the edge of my seat here. It's do or die. Both teams actually want to be able to do something. Of which sometimes it becomes a boring match if one team is kind of like just defending. So I think it was an interesting watch. Obviously, towards the last dying ends, Real Madrid actually wanted to win. And I think something that is particularly interesting, especially when it comes to the way Real Madrid play, is Jude Bellingham. In the second half, we saw him drop more as an 8. And you could see that there were times whereby he would receive the ball in the midfield and he's literally alone. And then he's got that ability to kind of like drive the ball forward. He's got the ability to drive the ball forward. And I would say, man, hey, there's some flying tackles that are coming in there. I saw some chopping each other, the boys. Yeah, they were kicking each other, bro. I don't even playing jokes. They were kicking each other. I just got to show that it was war, man. And then obviously City gets a chance to score through basically a foul by RODRYGO. Obviously, he puts Haaland in the box. And Haaland had been saying this before. That, hey, ref, these people have been pulling me. They're pulling me. Hey, do something, please. I beg, do something. And then finally, they got the penalty. You're thinking at this point, okay, Haaland has got the penalty. He's on form. He's been scoring goals for fun again. Is he going to score? Is he going to shoot? Is he going to place? Is he going to try to hit it hard and low? He goes there, stops a little bit, scores. And then at that point, yeah, unfortunately, that was a penalty by RODRYGO, because he was holding him. There was a cross. He tried to hold him. It happens. So there's nothing at that point that you can particularly do. I mean, what can you do? Obviously, the team was obviously going to be disappointed because you think, okay, we're still in the game and we do need to win here. But again, it's a penalty. RODRYGO out Haaland. They both fall to the ground. There's nothing that the referee can do there. VAR is a penalty, clear penalty. I don't think anyone. Yeah, obviously in the pitch you can complain, but. And there was actually a chance for him to get actually like a second yellow card when he fouled Savinho, But of course, he's going to protest like any player would. That is not a foul, this, that, and the third. Yeah, it was a foul, right? But it was pretty much interesting to see that, okay, man, Real Madrid did try towards the end. I think Vinicius, there was a time where now he was just like playing as a full-on winger. He had some one-on-ones. He tried to cross the ball. But unfortunately, I think it was too little too late. I think though, even though like I support Barca, it was good to see Enrique get onto the pitch. You could see that, man, at the end of the day, he's a footballer. At the end of the day, he's a player. He wants to play, man. And you can see that, the cup passed. It was his second appearance since the beginning of the season. And that just goes to show you, man, that, it has not been the easiest of roads for him. But nonetheless, he got in. He almost scored, though, because there was a crossbar that he hits there. And at this point, you're thinking, okay, he's going to score. Man, unfortunately, he did not work. So, yeah, man, it was good seeing Enrique playing, really good at doing his playing. It will be really interesting to see now when Mbappe is fit how the dynamic of the team is actually going to operate. Again, Manchester City have got another match coming up. They also need to make sure that they're applying pressure on Arsenal. Which Arsenal won today. So yeah, man, I think it meant a lot for these teams to be able to actually make sure that they at least they win. Manchester City go on that continuous run. For them, it's a good thing because they're continually winning and it gives them momentum. Whereas for Real Madrid, again, it's back to the drawing board. So yeah, man, that was just like a quick recap of what happened today. It was really a fun match to watch. So yeah, man, looking forward to doing more of this with you. Thank you so much for watching. Stay blessed, man. Stay blessed.